We're all slaves to marketing. Some of us are able to withstand the good looks of David Beckham and not instantly run out and buy whatever Tudor he's wearing. But I'm not, and a lot of others aren't either. The fact is, we're human, we're impressionable, and today I wanted to talk about the more unusual things that I've become aware of that influence my watch buying decisions. This is the Tudor FXD Pelagos Elengi. I've also got the regular FXD in black, and I've considered buying the blue. But I only consider buying the blue model when it's hot. I've got this list of watches I'm dreaming about, and I update it from time to time. Watches like the Pelagos Marine Nationale in blue is never on the list in the winter. It's when it's hot outside that it shows up on the list. I know, not surprising. But there's a reason, of course, that Tudor release a Lagoon Blue in the summer months and not in the dead of winter. But it's not just seasonal releases I notice. In hot weather, I look for watches on straps, on natas, watches with water resistance and sometimes color. When it's cold, I gravitate towards thinner watches that aren't as bulky under a sweater or a long sleeve shirt. I suppose you could boil everything down to weather, but my clothing defines my daily watch choices and also my purchases. If I'm in a jeans, Belstaff and Red Wing boots kind of phase, you can bet that a new Hamilton khaki is going to catch my attention. If I'm in navy chinos, suede boots and a white Oxford, a Nomus Club Sport or an IWC Engineer is the one that's living rent-free in my head. And when I'm on vacation or have been working in our summer house doing yard work, trust me, a new G-Shock release is going to be screaming, this is the watch you need to buy right now. Maybe I'm bipolar, maybe I'm not, but happy me buys dive watches, quirky watches. Happy me buys complications. When I'm really busy and a little bit stressed out, simple watches catch my attention. A sign of me being far too busy is looking at a Jaeger LeCoultre Ultron with a plain silver dial or a Nomos Orion. Busy me is just not considering a Plogue Prof Summer Blue. I even know that when I'm in a bad mood, I'm more likely to gravitate towards chunkier watches or even contrarian watches. The Constantine Chaikin Joker is a watch that I almost always start looking at when I'm kind of in a bad mood. If I'm in a bad mood at work and I feel corporate are being too pushy and too micromanaging, that's when I get this almost irrepressible need to buy something really crazy. It's almost Freudian how my state of mind seeps into my watch choices and buying considerations. If you're new here and in the mood to help out my channel, then click the subscribe button. It helps out my channel massively, and you also, because you get notified whenever I put out a new video. Thanks a ton. I've been doing more or less the same thing for 25 years, but I've been doing it in different companies. I've been in pharma, I've been in consulting, I've even been in consumer goods. When I wore a suit, I bought watches that were more restrained, more conformist, and just generally a lot more like the watches most other people buy. The Rolexes I own were all bought at a time where I wore a suit on a daily basis and I was in a company where hierarchy and status was really explicit. So it's in part about the clothing that gets forced on me, but it's also about the kind of people at the company. The average age of the people at the company I am at now is much lower than my previous one, and it clearly pushes me to different options. Sitting in a boardroom with some other 50-year-old executives inevitably leads me to talk about Rolex and Omega and Patek, where sitting in a group of leaders with an average age of 35, including a couple of women, pushes me to Nomos and Longines and Cartier. Weird, I know. On any given video, I get hundreds of comments. They are all over the place, and I'd say 98, 99% of them are positive, well-meaning, and constructive. Even from the people that don't always agree with me. Agreeing with me, by the way, is overrated. I'm not always right, even though I know I can sound incredibly confident in my opinion. So just know that if you're new here. But anyway, I digress. The fact is, when people in the comments suggest a watch, I am much more likely to take an interest in it. And I don't know if I necessarily trust you guys, but for a while I've been diving into ball watches who I honestly don't pay that much attention to, but simply because you and so many people have been mentioning them, I've been diving more into them. It doesn't always work though. There was a period where I talked a lot about an unmentionable color brand, and I got comments of you're a shill and you talk too much about this unmentionable brand, yada, yada, yada. And there it actually had the opposite effect. I almost became even more intent on my interest in the brand just to sort of subconsciously push back. Thierry Stern, we all know what he said about the poors, the people that can't afford his watches. Well, I could probably, with a lot of saving, afford a Patek. I have bought a Patek in the past, but the kind of statements he made had an effect. I'm no different from a lot of other people. Some people avoid Amazon because of something Jeff Bezos said. And it's clear that some people across the world chose to send their money elsewhere because of something Elon at some point said. CEOs have power over my and our purchasing decisions, And that's through the way they act and the way they communicate, positive as negative. And I pay attention to what the CEOs of these companies say, and it does affect me. So right now I'm wearing the Pelagos, and I've been wearing it for a little over a week. And what have I gravitated towards? Other divers, other Pelagos, Ploprof, Doxers. These are the kind of watches that sort of enter into my brain. The Marine Nationale is front and center right now, despite it being almost the exact same watch. And that's because this one kind of reminds me of it and just sends me in that direction. I want more watches that are like that, which is totally stupid. That's also why I'm bouncing around a Panerai green submersible right now. It does the same kind of thing, and I start mixing and matching and thinking about it, and it's totally what you would call recency bias. But it clearly, what's on my wrist will impact what exactly I sort of gravitate towards in the near term. Defects and service. I've never owned a JLC that didn't have some sort of initial problem, and I've owned a few. I've got a moon phase that has an intermittent problem that shows every now and again where the hour hand misaligns on the front face, not the rear. Bad experiences with product quality are incredibly hard for me to shake. Also, and this is not a JLC thing, but bad service at an AD or a boutique lingers in my mind for ages. I still have a natural propensity to not rate AP releases to some extent because I've had more than a single bad experience with an AD store clerk or salesperson. Never had that with Patek. I've never had a bad experience with a Rolex AD. I mean, apart from everything being exhibition only, but with me, they've always been friendly and kind and polite. So I just don't have the hate for them that a lot of other people have. And that's also in part why I usually speak quite positively of IWC, because they are so very friendly, to me at least, in their stores. Weirdly, I also care what my wife thinks and what she likes. We don't have the same taste in everything, and I know that I sometimes choose things that are far too eccentric and quirky than anything she would ever choose. But she does have pretty good taste and has a good take on what looks good on me, and she can talk me out of the dumber choices that sound like a good idea but aren't. So she talked me out of a watermelon studio underdog that ended up being a Zenith A384 instead. Of my watches that are on my dream list right now, so a Seagull 1963, she also likes it. She also convinced me that no matter my salary, I should not pay retail for a Zenith Lapis Lazuli annual calendar. If I ever get it, it's only going to be on the secondary market. Finally, YouTubers. You know the story. Tristano over at the Urban Gentry is the man I credit for opening my eyes to Squale and eventually buying a 1521. Not all YouTubers have influence over me, but there are two YouTubers that impact my interests and to some extent my buying behaviors. One is like that movie reviewer you always come back to because you just know through experience that if the reviewer likes it, then you're probably going to like it as well. And that's the YouTuber You're Terrific. It's not that I haven't actually bought anything that he's displayed, but he tends to like things that I like. And if he speaks highly of a watch, I tend to seek it out, at least to try it. And the YouTuber that sends me in the completely opposite direction, the YouTuber where I almost instinctively shy away and think I will never buy anything this person speaks positively of. I'm not telling you guys on that one. Psych. That's for me to know and you never to find out. What influences you? Share in the comments, like, subscribe. Cheers.